right? So how requirement lifecycle management looks like, right? So this is what we are going to discuss in today's session. Requirement lifecycle management is also another knowledge area which majorly used to design as well as document the requirements for the maintenance purpose. Because let us take our case study into consideration. Ours is a cloud-based point of sale system. In this cloud-based point of sale system, being a business analyst, we have gathered some requirements from the customer. So whenever we have gathered requirements from the customer based on the understanding, we must ensure that whatever the requirements we have taken were right, point number one. Second, how to manage those requirements and how to prioritize those. So there is a structure which normally we have to follow. So in order to know about that structure, requirement lifecycle management tells you about that. Means we have done the business analysis approach. How to do the business analysis approach was done initially. So after that, enterprise analysis means how to understand the requirements, like how to understand the business case, right? Assessing the capability gaps, all that. Next, in order to reconfirm the requirements are there as well as the expectation versus reality, we have conducted the JAT session. And whenever we try to understand the problem from the element of interest from the customer perspective, what sort of techniques do we use? Because if it is external factors, what sort of techniques do we require to use? If it is internal, what are the things to be taken care of? If it is from the changes happens in the business process, in order to manage those changes, how you are going to do? Followed by this prioritization. So this is what we have discussed so far. Now, requirement life cycle means how you have to trace the requirements and how you have to manage the requirements, how you have to maintain, prioritize, assessing. So all these things comes under requirement lifecycle management, which is relating to the complete requirements. This will be. Now, if you want to know about the requirement lifecycle, wherein there are three different things. One is input, second is task, followed by output. Now, what is input here? Input means input are the one requirements you have to take, first of all, because whatever you have understood so far and all that. So these requirements, again, we must be knowing about requirements classification that is required. So I'm just texting on the chat box. Please make a note of it. So requirements classification, first of all, you must be knowing before we are getting into the requirements. Before tracing, right, tracing, maintaining, prioritizing, assessing, approving. So first of all, we must be knowing about requirements classification. Please make a note. Requirement classification means types of requirements, whatever it is, right? So types of requirement classification. So these are as follows. The first we call it as business requirements. First we call it as business requirements. I'm texting on the chat box. Please make a note of yours. Business requirements. Second, stakeholder or end user requirements. Stakeholder or end user requirements. Third, solution requirements. Next, transitional requirements, followed by this regulatory requirements. So these are the requirements, means business requirements, stakeholder or end user requirements, solution requirements, transitional and regulatory requirements. How it is different? Because is this differentiation happens from the customer, or are we going to do as a BA? Yes, being a business analyst, that is our responsibility to do these classifiers. Why are we classifying? Because whenever we are interacting with the customer as a part of initial phase, when we are trying to understand their problem, all that, we'll be interacting with multiple stakeholders, isn't it? Right? So you'll be interacting with business owner, you'll be interacting with technical owner, you'll be interacting with end users, right? So we'll be interacting with functional heads, different people we are interacting with. Everybody have their own perception. If you remember last time I have told you, long goals and short-term goals. Long-term goals will be there for a business owner and all, because what they want to achieve finally. Short-term goals will be there for the people who are using application, because they don't look for the uh, long-term purpose. They look for the short-term purpose on that. Hence, what is that we require here? Business requirements. Business requirements always obviously see what are the business goals a customer wants to achieve. Business requirements means, by knowing about business requirements, what we'll be knowing about the goal as well as the vision what customer wants to achieve. This is all comes under business requirements. If you want, you can make a note of it. It is better for you to remember again. Business requirements majorly focusing on goal vision of the customer. Goal and vision of the customer in business. Okay, because solution is an integral part, as I mentioned a couple of times to you. So goal and vision of the business is what comes under business requirements. Next, stakeholder or end user requirements. What stakeholder or end user is expecting? Means people who are using it. I can say users. They may be a primary users or secondary users or main users, whoever they are, who are using application are considered as stakeholder or end user requirements. Means they are using this application for very long time, this point of sale system. Now they want to implement we are implementing a new cloud-based point of sale system is what we have understood so far. So what is that we require? We must be knowing about what is that customer is expecting, because they are facing some sort of difficulties in managing their application for very long time. So they're expecting some changes to be made into that. So what are those changes? This is all comes under stakeholder or end user requirements. In order to make their work more comfortable, what is that they are expecting comes under this category. Third, solution requirements. This solution again will be categorized into few parts. Solution means what is that you are going to. What is our example? Our example is developing a cloud-based point of sale system is a solution, isn't it? If it's a solution, if you want to implement that, what is that you require? If you are developing a cloud-based point of sale system, it's as a solution. First of all, we must be knowing what are the features to develop. First question, what are the features to develop? Under solution, I'm saying. Okay. Under solution, what are the features to develop? Point number one. Means what are the different features do we have? Next, under features, what functional and non-functional requirements we want to develop. So what functional and non-functional requirements we want to develop, which are under feature. Now I'll be showing you the document so that you'll be understood better. If you can see here, I've just shown the comparison between the traditional. Of course, I have this document with me, so if you want, I'll share you so that you can go through. You can see here, these are the features followed by functionalities of an existing one, traditional point of sale system. So let us discuss about the cloud solution. Okay, now these are the features. What are the features? CRM loyalty is one feature. Franchise and multi-location, hardware and cash register, inventory management, loss of prevention, payments. So these are the different features are available for cloud-based POS. Okay, now functionality. What is functionality? In order to use this feature, what functionalities you have to develop in order to use it? For example, you're talking about hardware and cash register, right? What is that you require? You need to have an option for point of sale system or MPOS, means mobile point of system option. Next, mobile payment hardware, right? Cash register POS peripherals, means what are all the functionalities under this hardware and cash register are comes under the functional requirements. So feature, Within the feature you have functional, means what you I think last time I have given a generalized example, if you remember, of a car, isn't it? Is that given to you or for someone? I have given an example to you of a car. Is that for you? Any example I have given? Car as an example, like GPRS tracking, all that. Is that example
Yes.
given to you?
Yes, you did.
Right. Yes, I have given. If you remember, let me connect that. I'll tell you. So if in a car there is a feature called GPRS tracking device. GPRS is a device which is called as a feature. But if you want to use that feature, what is that you require? You need to have an options in that. Functionalities. What are the functionalities? Need to have an option to enable the location where you are now first, right? You have to choose the location where you are now. Second, you have to choose the location where you want to reach. Next, you need to have a submit button. Whenever you are clicking on the submit button, it shows you the directions. Once you have reached the direction, it will tell you that it is on the right or left hand side of yours. So if you want to operate the device, what is that required? There are some functionalities which must be written in this. Then only the device is having a value. The same way, it's not only about developing a cloud-based point of sale system. First of all, we have to identify what are the features required to develop cloud-based POS. Right. So what technology are using? That's a different thing. Right. Whether what technology are using, what software, what hardware, what cloud system, all different are, right? So those are all different as separate. But prior to this, what is that you require? You must be knowing about what are the features are needed. Second, in the features, you must be knowing about what functionalities are required. Just now, just now I have told you, right? So what functionalities? So how to develop that functionalities? Again, developer will look after, right? What are the functionalities required for that feature is what being a business analyst your responsibility. How to develop that, what technology we are using, how fast, how accurate, all this will be looking after by the technical team. Developers headache it is, right? So how the user interface, how grand it should be, right? How flexible, everything that, because technical part will be looking after by them. So what you are going to provide is what are the function features and what are the functionalities which must be hidden in that, right? This is what generally the point. Now, non-functional. It's not only about functional, as I mentioned you, non-functional requirements also required. So what is non-functional then? Non-functional means character, behavior of the particular functionality is what we call it as non-functional. For example, billing is happening, right? Customer is saying that, of course, we are developing a product, but assume that customer is saying this. On an average, daily 400 to 500 people are coming to the store. Okay. On the weekends and the peak times, it is reaching to somewhere around 600 to 700 every day, roughly. I'm saying. How many systems or how many POS systems required? Because at the end of the day, it's a cloud-based POS system. You require different systems, right? Because to connect the cloud, 3-4 counters required. Depends on the people who are coming on that. Next, average time taking for billing should not be more than this. This is what the condition. So that condition we comes under non-functional, means character of the particular user story. How should a particular functionality, how should it behave? Means customer is providing a condition here that billing should not be not more than 4 minutes or 5 minutes. If it is more than that, what is happening? Obviously, there will be two reasons for this. One, performance of the person who is using it. Because, for example, that person is not well trained of using it fast, right? So that could be one reason. Of course, that reason is absolutely with the business owner. So they have to train people accordingly. That is one point. Second, system is very slow. Means whatever the system, either it may be a cloud, even internet connection, everything is slow. So what will happen? Even the person are well trained, because of this, they were unable to use it properly. So that what is happening here? The billing is delayed. Because of the billing delay, customer has to stand on queues. So these are the interconnects. So because of this, what is happens? Because of this, you will be delaying it, right? So there is a possibility of delay which is happening here. So this is what we call it as non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements majorly focuses on performance, scalability, load balancing, all that. Because if you see, especially a financial applications, when you use stocks, all that, there are different servers you could see, right? If one server is loaded, automatically load will be transferred to the other server. Right? Load balancing, wo hum bolte load balancing, right? Load balancing happens. So you are balancing the load so that in order to reduce the problem to the server. Otherwise, what will happen? Server will be crashed. So that again to recover that it takes time. Again, customer has to wait. So all these. So non-functional requirements, in short, explains you about the performance, scalability of the application, nature of the application, or a character of an application. So this is what generally comes under solution requirements. Coming to the point, solution requirements means we need to know about what are the features are required here. Followed by the features, we must be knowing about what are the functional and non-functional requirements we want to develop. Okay. Now, after solution requirements, next we call it as transitional requirements. What is transitional requirements? Transitional requirements means state of transition from existing to proposed. If you see here closely, there were features and functionalities I have mentioned for both existing and proposed. For existing is a traditional POS. Traditional POS have different modules like billing, sales, monitoring, inventory, all that. But in addition to that, if you can see closely a cloud-based POS system, you have few more. What are that? You have 24/7 modules are different, right? Automatic updates, because if any software is updated automatically, it will be updated in your cloud environment also, so that you don't require to do any software updation the way it happens in our mobiles, right? In our mobiles, you will get a message notification all the time. Do you want me to update your system or something? Right? If you can click on it, automatically it will reboot and it will update your software, all that, right? So, but make sure you must be online, then only it will happen. So that is one advantage. Next, you can download or you can create reports, everything online. This is what reporting analytics. So there is a transitional state, means from the existing to proposed, there is a state of transition, which being a business analyst you must be understand, or you must have the clarity on it. This is what we call it as transitional requirements are. Understood? Transitional requirements. So business requirements talks about business goal and vision, all that. Stakeholder or end user requirements majorly focusing on what are end user needs. Solution requirements means what are the different features, functional and non-functional requirements we want to develop. Transitional requirements, transitional state from present to future. This is what we call it as transitional, how it is different and what differences you have identified between these two. Is it completely constant and different, or is there anything to be taken care of? Next, regulatory requirements. In order to meet or in order to develop the requirements, what are the standards, policies, procedures we have to follow, and what could be the difficulties also? Because if you are working on this point, I have explained in beginning, if I am not wrong, I explained that. Whenever I explain about the scope, this point came to you, right? Regulatory part. Means, for example, do we have access for every functionality, or do we have access for every feature which is working on the organization? Because there will be some limitations. Customer doesn't allow you to use some data for testing purpose, all that, because of lot many restrictions. Due to that, what will happen? What is the amount of work you are going to do will be disturbed a lot. So there are some regulatory standards, policies, procedures which we must be abide with when you are developing a solution, is what we comes under regulatory requirements. Regulatory requirements means what are the standards, policies, procedures do we require to follow, comes under regulatory requirements. So these are the different requirements classification which we have taken: business requirements, stakeholder or end user requirements, solution requirements, transitional requirements, regulatory requirements. So this is how generally the classification Being a business analyst team, we have to do, right? This is all comes under here, requirements. Next, designs. Designs means high level design of the application, low level design. High level design means how externally, what is the final thing we want to know. At the same time, we must be knowing about the proposed changes, means what are the different changes to be changes we have identified. So all these things comes under the inputs, means if you want to understand or if you want to manage the tasks of requirement lifecycle management, we must be knowing about all these. You must be having a detailed requirements with you. You need to have a complete design of the application, means both high level and low level. High level means what is that finally you want to develop, finally you want to see, sorry. Low level means what is that you want to develop in addition to this. This is what low level design stands for. So high level designing and low level designing of the application must be known to you well in advance. Next, what are the proposed changes? If any changes in between, which are inevitable in case, right? What are those changes and how to encounter those changes or how to manage or address the changes? So these are the proposed changes have to be taken into account before we are going into requirement lifecycle management, right? These are the inputs. Whatever the topics I have mentioned here are inputs. Now, what tasks do we need to perform? These requirements classification means requirements lifecycle management is on this part. One is you have to trace the requirements. Second, you have to maintain the requirements. Third, you have to prioritize the requirements. Four, you have to assess the requirement changes. Fifth, you have to approve the requirements, right? These are the different parts you have to do. First of all, tracing out the requirements. This is the first point. What is tracing out the requirements means? Tracing out the requirements means there will be two cases. One is use case, second is test case. What's the difference between what is connect between use case and test case? Use case is what you are developing according to the requirements of the customer. Test case, final end result, because test case will be prepared by the testing team. So to trace the requirements, there is a concept called requirement traceability matrix. Requirements traceability matrix. Let me deviate from this to this, because let me explain you what is requirement traceability. Then again I'll go back to the remaining task on it, right? Tracing out the requirements, because this is where we're discussing. It is important for us. So being a team, understand this from the team perspective, not as a role of a BA. Okay, remember this. Subject to terms and point to be noted first. Don't think as a BA, think from a overall team perspective. So requirement traceability matrix is what usually a testing team will start working in the beginning days, because most of the people have a conception here that testing team will come when the coding starts, right? Whenever coding is completed, customer testing people will do the testing. This is what the conception we'll be having in our mind from very long time. To some extent it is right, but not to the full extent. The reason is, normally testing team will also be involved right from the initial stages of the project. Means whenever we have taken the requirements, whenever we start working, usually, because if you remember when I explained about V model, you will be knowing about this part. You can see the connect there. Normally, even testing team will also start interacting with the technical, because these people also part of technical team. These people also will participate. Means whenever we have initially we have taken the requirements, whenever there is a discussion of technical part going on, even testing people will also involve. Means testing people, I'm saying, irrespective of the designation they will be. So testing people will also be involved in this. So what they do, they try to identify what is the final result customer is expecting. That's the reason why normally testing is divided into two different parts. One is manual testing, second is automation testing. How it is different? What is manual? What is automation? Manual testing, nothing but what is that you are doing using documents. This is what we call it as manual testing stands for. Means you are preparing test cases, test plans, test scripts. What is that you are doing using Word document, using Microsoft Word document? What you are all preparing comes under manual testing. What you are preparing all under manual testing. Manual testing means you are preparing test cases, test plans, because testing team has to prepare all these first. They have to prepare all these in the beginning days itself. Means what are all uh, the requirements which customer is expecting us to deliver. All these things comes under manual testing. Means they have to prepare some test case. For example, if there is a login page, so this is how the page looks like, right? They'll create some template for that. They'll prepare some. If this is an input, this must be the output. Everything will be keeping by them first. So what next they do? They'll compare whenever there is a development taken place. They'll simply comparing these two. This is what we call it as expected versus actual. Expected delivery is what customer is expecting, which testing team has prepared in a form of manual testing. What is actual? What is the developer has delivered is what we call it as actual. If both are same, test condition will be considered as pass. If both are not same, test condition will be considered as fail. Right? This is what generally. So testing team is the people. Testing team are the people who will be preparing requirement traceability matrix to describe about the requirements well in advance before you are going to start the require session and all that. So before you're going to start the solution development, testing team has to understand requirements, life of requirements, means how these requirements were transforming. Is this requirements were rightly developing or not? Means what is the risk is involved, what is the code they are going to develop, right? What are the different incidents will be taken place in this, right? What kind of task, right? How to require the test cases, everything will be looking after by the testing team here. This requirement traceability again will be classified again into two different parts. One is forward traceability, second is backward traceability. Okay. What is forward traceability? Forward traceability means this majorly verifies you about the requirements which are something connecting to the designs. Means what are the design elements we have? Means design part. At the same time, what are the different components we are using for the system? Technical hardware and software components. For example, hardware components. In system components, I'll give you on hardware components. For POS, what are hardware components? Can you tell me? What are hardware components for a point of sale system?
Memory.
What are hardware components for a point of sale system? Because I'm discussing here about system components, right? So yeah, what is meant by hardware components?
They need
in
a processor.
POS? Sorry?
Processor?
No. Processor is an internal part, right? Internal. Processor is internal.
Okay,
what are hardware? Hardware components. Hardware you can't see outside, right? Processor is an inbuilt one. Processor is within the CPU, right? In simple note. What is hardware components? Think logically. Because without this hardware component, you cannot work the billing part. You cannot work on billing. What was that?
It has to be a system and an EDC machine.
Right. So you need to have barcode readers, scanners, all these required, right? Because if someone is getting products to you, what you have to do, first of all, you have to scan it. Right? You have to scan it. Whenever you scan a product, what will happen? Automatically, product name will be displayed. Product name followed by the price of the product per unit will be displayed on the screen. Why? Because POS system is integrally connected with inventory management application. So what is the inventory is available at the store? Based on the barcode or whatever you have scanned, automatically product name will be displayed. What a billing person do here? Simply he'll mention you the quantity. For example, we have taken toothpaste, right? Colgate toothpaste we have taken. So assume that Indian rupees I'm converting into Indian rupees plus 25, right? 26 rupees is a unit price into 3, right? The final cost will be mentioned on the screen automatically, right? So this is what is required, because without hardware components, can you do that? Because without scanning, because you have to connect to the barcode scanner. Whenever you have scanned, automatically you can see the product name there. Automatically you can see the unit price. And what a billing person is doing, that he is doing he is mentioning the what we call the number of units you have taken is what they will mention it. Automatically it will be multiplied and final cost will be shown there. And once they are doing billing, automatically taxes will also be included and final billing will be shown to the customer. So this is what we call it as hardware components. Without hardware components, we cannot work on the application. So what are the hardware? What are the software components? Software components inside of the application, right? So what are the hardware and software components? These are we call it as system components in simple words. So what are the different hardware and software components which are involved in it? At the same time, we must be knowing about the we must be knowing about the design part of the project. At the same time, what are the modules and features are involved? Just now I have told you, I have shown you about the features, all that, right? So what are the modules involved in it? At the same time, what are the followed by the project deliverables, what we want to involve in? All these things comes under forward traceability. In simple words, I can say forward traceability means how exactly it is connecting from use case to test case. Use case is what we are developing now, right? As a developer, you are doing. Test case is what being done by the testing team. Both must be same. Both must be same. Traceability, tracing. You are tracing and you are comparing both. It must be same. Then only people feel that everything, each and every functionality was properly connected. Then only you feel. Otherwise, what will happen? There is a possibility sometimes as compatibility issues. For example, I have developed an application on my system, right? So whenever it comes to your system, it is not executing. What could be the reason behind that? There are multiple reasons. One, what is the proper configuration required for that application to execute may not be there in your system, right? First of all, software, hardware issues. Maybe there may be a possibility of error. For example, in coding, whenever we write, even a comma is also useful. If you are missing the comma, the code won't get executed, right? So there are lot of reasons for that, right? Lot of reasons for that. So there are compatibility issues. So forward traceability, nothing but from use case, you are connecting from use case to test case. This is what we call it as forward traceability, right? Second, vice versa, backward traceability from test cases to use cases. That is what we call it as backward traceability stands for. So majorly, if you talk about backward traceability, which majorly focuses on the kind of requirements what customer is expecting or what are the different features are we involving in it. In simple things, we must be knowing about how these test cases are connecting to use cases. Both are same or not. So both forward traceability followed by backward traceability, both must be same. Then only tracing out the requirements will become much easier, because testing team has to ensure, underline this point, testing team has to ensure each and every functionality must be addressed by the technical team for sure. This is what generally testing team's responsibility. When it comes to the implementation, it's not simply by writing code. It's not simply by writing code, because it's not code only that project called as, right? So project consists of so many things, right? So module coordination and as well as integration of modules is required. You need to have a connect with all the features, because for example, if you remember when I shown you about the features, there are features which I have explained, but don't you think that there is an interconnect among these features? Don't you feel that there is a connect which is required, right or not? Otherwise, how can you say it's an application, right? Agree, right or not? So there are features or modules we are developing, but whenever we are developing a feature, all the features were interconnected, either directly or indirectly, it will get interconnected. So in between the work, when there is a change which is happening in between the project, what will happen? There may be some changes happens in the internal application which was successfully completed earlier. So for that, generally what testing team has to do, testing team do and testing called regulatory testing, regression testing, regression testing means when there is a change in the existing application which was already completed, you're doing the changes, what are the impacts, what could be the impacts, which is working fine, which is not working. To know that, regression testing will be done by the testing. So testing team job is also prominent in application development, especially when you are tracing out the requirements in real environment. Understood, Rani, Melvin, Sri?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is what we call it as tracing of the requirement. So first of all, we have to trace each and every requirement was incorporated. Tracing out the requirements is not simply a functionality which are associated with that functionality. For example, I am doing a billing functionality. If I am doing billing, what are all involved here? It's not only about mentioning about the customer details there. There must be an option for payment, different payment modes option. Before paying, I should able in a position to identify the products. If I want to identify the products, what is that is required? You need to have a proper inventory connect with that, right? Inventory. At the same time, you must ensure that that inventory system should work fine. It should be updated, right? Next, there must be a provision for components, something like hardware components, where we scan the product, automatically it will be appeared on the screen. So everything was interconnected. Assume that if there is no updation of inventory happens, right? If your inventory management system was not updated properly, but your point of sale system is accurate, right? You have developed a cloud-based POI system, everything, but inventory management system was very outdated. So what will happen? The results what you see are not accurate. The results what you see are not accurate because externally it's fine, but internally what is that required? How to? Because for example, there were 100 in quantity toothpaste, 3 paste were sold, 97 should be the balance. So if it is not accurate, for example, right? For example, if it's not accurate, so then what is the use of it? So there is an interdependency, interconnectivity is required. So when developer is writing down or about to develop the requirements or about to develop the coding, it's not only about the code. We have to see the interconnects among all these. For that, what is required? There is a traceability, which is required by the testing team. Because why testing team is involving? Because end of the day, who has to identify and who has to reconfirm it? Yes, this word, this coding is right. This is not right. Right? There are bugs here. Who will be identifying all these? Testing team has to identify. So for that, testing people involvement will also be there in the tracing out the requirements. This is the reason why requirement traceability matrix is the one which will be developed done by the testing team in the beginning days of the project. Whenever the beginning days, whenever they are working on the application in the analysis phase, something of that sort, even in testing team will also do few things parallelly, wherein they prepare this requirement traceability matrix, all these things in advance. Is it clear, Sri, Rani, Melvin?
Yes.
Yes.
So for that, of course, they prepare. They're using different tools like application lifecycle management, the ALM tools, HPQC, all that will be there. So of course they'll be integrating it so that they'll be knowing about the tracing of, right, how the requirements, whether all the requirements were traced or not, all the requirements were addressed properly. Because requirements are not 5 to 10, right? Requirements will be 100 in number sometimes, right? So because it's keep on going, lot of functional, non-functional requirements are involved in it. Either functional, non-functional, again there is an integration, right? There is connect between functional and non-functional. That is also there. So tracing out the requirements is absolutely required for any team. It's not, again I'm repeating, it's not only for a BA, but with the help of, say, business analyst is not alone you doing all the things. Business analyst has to incorporate with technical team, testing team and all everything throughout the project. So why are they learning about all these? Because you could ask me one question, Raj, based on the understanding what I came to know about that, this tracing out the requirements, most major work I could see by the testing team, not by the business analyst. Then what is the reason? Cheese kya hai is pe? Learning ke liye, right? So why, for what reason are we learning? What was the use of it? Unless and if you don't know the process of tracing out the requirements, when you want to deliver something or when you want to understand something or when you want to coordinate with your technical team or with your business team, how come we know? We must be knowing about the structure well in advance. That's the reason why requirement traceability matrix is something essentially required to trace the requirements. This is the first point under the task. Clear to everyone? Rani, Melvin, Shri,
Yes.
clear? Then tracing out the requirements we have completed today. Next, maintaining requirements that I'll explain tomorrow. Because requirement lifecycle management takes time. It will not be completed in one session. It takes 1 to 3 sessions it will be taken, because there are detailings which we have to know, because high level understanding or high level explanation is not suggestible here. Okay? It's not suggestible. You must be knowing about the internal things of it. So tracing out the requirements is what we have done so far, followed by maintaining, prioritizing. All that I'm going to explain in tomorrow. Clear? Any queries? Any doubts?
Good.
No.
Yeah, go ahead, Mel.
No, I'm good.
Rani, yourself?
Yeah, I'm good too.
Sri?
I'm good, Raj.
Okay, right. So tracing out the requirements done. Tomorrow we discuss about